been a while since I've hosted one of these.
How do you feel?
Welcome back to On the Bench.
It's like riding a bike, Zach.
I still got my training wheels on. I'm here with Brendan Sonnone and Chris Nee. Both just got back to Tallahassee from a bustling Charlotte, North Carolina. Boys, how was it?
Outside of a security checkpoint, it was great.
How long was your security checkpoint wait, Chris?
Oh, it took about an hour. And there was a gentleman in front of me completely crashing out over it. I had many hours to burn. I was just planning to go park my butt at Wicked Weed and have a beer or two while working because I had a bunch of time to kill till the flight. But Charlotte Airport's always an adventure, especially right now because there's a lot of construction.
I used to have a take that Charlotte Airport wasn't more. It was actually better than Atlanta Airport, but I was wrong. I can admit when I was wrong, and that place sucks.
That's hard to do because Atlanta's really bad.
Yeah, but Atlanta is much more efficient given the volume of people that they
through there.
Charlotte, you have to walk like 20 minutes everywhere now.
As for the actual kickoff, I enjoyed all the one-off questions for Twitter usage in the future for people. Really,
what were some of the examples?
Oh, just like with Tommy Castellanos, there was discussion of his training partners, which I guess includes Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. I think it also includes people like Kyron Drones, who would actually be pertinent because they play each other this year. Just craziness.
Chris
Daryl had the large chain and pretty nice stuff on the wrist. And what are you wearing today? Tell me about it. I mean, yeah.
Chris is not on the same wavelength as these Twitter influencers.
I mean, Chris has a job to do. He wants to get in, get out, and that's
exactly.
You know what really pisses, what grinds my gears, guys, about ACC Kickoff and all these events. Just in general, I feel like collective media doesn't do a great job of follow-up questions. That's something I pride myself on. Some other people, like I think Ira on the beat's really good at it. Like the FSU beat, it has people who are good. Matt Baker, when he comes up, does a nice job with follow-up questions. People listening, active listening, and sometimes you can find something interesting with that. At these events, it's just people just want to get in a question just for the sake of getting in a question, and there's no flow or rhythm to it. So I found myself cutting people off a couple of times because I was trying to do a follow-up question. I usually don't. I'm very passive in these things.
Sonnone went with the double fingers.
I don't know about that.
Yeah,
that's
you can't plant your flag on my field.
Oh, the mic. Yeah, I did get a little territorial once or twice, but yeah.
Not to
I share Chris's. We have a job. All right, sorry, Zach, you're hosting.
I'm supposed to host.
What's up with your hair? What's happening right now?
I went for a little walk run.
Was it raining out?
It was not raining. It takes a long time for my hair to dry.
Looks great.
I completely forgot where I was going. Oh, not to backtrack, but Buyer Sonnone.
Brought to you by the Turner Group.
Brought to you by
the Turner Group's like they control this right now.
Chris has had a crash out at the airport before.
Sonnone.
No, I have Newark, New Jersey, on the way back from Omaha after winning the College World Series. On the way, I was heading to family vacation from that. One, I wasn't supposed to be in Newark. Like that was never part of the trip. That just happened because Mother Nature decided it should happen. But they sent a lot of people to Newark, and it was not fun. Yeah, that was a long day. That crash out more happened when we landed in Orlando, and somebody decided because they were in the last row of the plane, they were the most important person in the plane. And I had enough that day, so I let that person know I disagreed with their decision.
I love that.
I told a lady whoa yesterday. She got up and tried to cut in front, and there was an old elderly woman in front of me who was also trying to get up still. Like a few people had already gone, and so I went and she went to. I boxed her. I said, "Whoa. And she goes, "Oh, go ahead." I was like, "I know I go ahead. This is how a proper society operates. Is there's rows, there's numbers, we follow them in sequential order, and that's how it should operate. The only excuse is if you're trying to get a connection. No one's getting a connection in Tallahassee. Like that's a final destination. Let's be.
For the most part, I roll with the punches when traveling because I travel enough that like if I don't, I'm going to have my heart pop inside my body.
Quick shout out to our sponsors.
Sorry, Colin.
Speaking of your heart popping out of your body, Look what I got my hands on.
Oh, you did finally
Let's
get it?
go. The unicorn.
The bourbon barreled limoncello. It is exquisite.
Look at the color.
Yeah,
That's beautiful.
it's. I'm glad. I talked about it on the last podcast, but as soon as it went back on sale or back in stock, had multiple people reach out that listeners and Brendan as well, telling me that it was back. So I had to get my hands on it. It is already out of stock again, so clearly a hot commodity, and it's well worth it. And Chattanooga whiskey just does such a great job with their 111 proof. I've tried the port cast finish. That's one of my favorites, and the Founders Edition as well. But then they do experimental batches like this, and that's what really makes them unique and our favorite bourbon in the market. So definitely give Chattanooga whiskey a look. And then, as Trey Rowland likes to say, if you are, or he likes to say a lot of things, but if you
Are you saying that he talks too much?
no, I'm saying he comes up
Right.
with a lot of unique verbiage.
Shots fired.
If you were drunk off Chattanooga whiskey and you're looking to buy or sell a home in the state of Florida, who are you guys going to call?
The Turner Group.
The Turner Group.
Colin and Amy Turner at the Turner Group are killing it in the home buying and selling process in the state of Florida. Give them a look. They're awesome. They're FSU fans. Get after it.
Someone's
All right,
definitely going to
so-
tweet at Zach about the cadence of his speaking.
A little
currently.
faster. The limoncello also was, source tells me, purchased by one Colin Turner. So he's
Ooh,
also
okay. We got some cross-pollination there.
sorry, Colin.
I don't know if that's the right word. All right, let's get into it. ACC kickoff. I want to start with Mike Norvell. I thought in his opening part of his press conference, this is my hosting voice, Brendan. Stop laughing at me.
You mean on the main stage?
He's
Yeah.
moving so slow.
On the main stage, he was fiery. Am I right?
Yeah, but he's gotten that way in the past. I thought the reaction was interesting on what was that, Tuesday now? Of people being like he never gets that way. He gets that way. He does that a time or two, I feel like, most years. And I feel like we usually see it at least once in the preseason. Sometimes in that setting where we saw it this time. I didn't like, I'm trying to play less psychiatrist this go around, but I didn't make a whole lot of it.
Well, I think there were certain things that he said that were noteworthy that he's not really done before. Brendan, why don't you get into that?
Yeah, the tone was Chris is right. He does that. Him saying that he doesn't want a team of sidekicks, I thought was interesting. That wasn't him directly saying last year's team was sidekicks.
It kind of was.
I think indirectly. I think we can deduce as much. And then when we talked to Mike Norvell it was before then. It was during the local media
breakout
portion of it. And he was asked about team building and whatnot. And he said, we actually have done, ironically, less of that this offseason than we did the year before. We did a lot of it last year, and there's a reason for that. And I thought that was interesting. I thought everyone's ears kind of perked up. Like, if you could see ears perk up, they perked up at that. And Mike's not usually one to compare past, present. Like, that's not really what he does. And those are two examples of a pretty short period of time in which he did. The significance of that, I've kind of gone back and forth with. I mean, ultimately, these are just words, and like we're all going to judge what happens in the next month, But I did find it interesting that was a variance, a deviation from how he normally would operate, and I think part of it, and Chris wrote about this yesterday, is separating himself from the stank of last year's team and trying to compartmentalize 2025. And I think that's smart, right? That's what you should do. Whether you actually can compartmentalize year to year, like you can say each team's different, that's true, but the program's still the program, and there's still trickle through it of the same players, and some coaches retain, you know what I mean? So anyways, I found it interesting. That was probably the most noteworthy thing that he said from a non like news standpoint, just in terms of anecdotes, I guess.
Yeah, I followed up with him during that local media breakout session before he hit the main stage. After he talked some about 23 and the success they had and what they learned from that, and then 24 the failures they had and the need to respond to that and the combination of that stuff. But then he's also talking about 25 and how they have done things differently. It's a very different football team. What they roll out there against Alabama as far as starters, it's probably going to be out of the 22, roughly 16 or so are going to be new faces. And a majority of those are new faces to the program, either first-year guys in the program as transfers or potentially a freshman or two, a guy like Javon Boggs, for example. So, like, those guys have no attachment, no stigma, no tie to anything that's happened before. So I sort of asked him, like, does 25 need to separate itself from anything and everything that's happened before and just be about 25? And the underbelly of that question, which I didn't ask directly, is basically, did 24 get impacted by 23 and the good and obviously the magnitude bad moment that happened at the end? I'm of the belief it played a role, certainly. There's a whole lot of elements that played a role in 24, but I do think some of it was a carryover effect. I think to a degree, the carryover effect of 2 and 10 is that you're trying to prove, well, we're not that. You got to prove that anyways. Like, as the head coach, you've been given the additional year that in reality of a single year return was not earned. As a roster, you've changed a lot of things intentionally because you don't want 2 and 10. You understand there were roster issues that you had to improve upon. You've gone and tried to do that. So, like, to me, I don't think they need to view 25 as a, like, referendum on 24. 25 is just 25, and they need to be the best version of the 44, 66 guys that they lean into and the staff that they are, and just go do what they're going to do. And what it is going to be, because FSU's had that literally, it's wild, but FSU is essentially the highest level of success and one of the lowest levels of failure in the portal era. And they're an example of that. So, like, yeah, I think they're going to land in the middle of those two numbers, but just go and be what you're going to be with this group. Like, this group is its own group, its own entity. 2025 is solely about 2025.
I did think Mike took a shot at Miami too, which I kind of enjoyed. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he did say,
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
What was it?
The part
Some
where
talk about
like,
trophies.
Yeah, he's like, well, some people talk about it, but we've lived it with,
But he kind of like looked around, like his peers just immediately around him, and Miami was the day before. So, and they were talking about winning championships. So I like Mike going on the offensive a little bit more. I think that's good. I think they can use more of that. Again, ultimately, does it really matter if you're not winning games, right? But if you are winning games, like I do like a little bit of that edge to him. Like, he's trying to instill that on his team, even before he walked in, everyone was kind of standing around the table where he was going to sit. I've always found Mike's at his best when everyone's kind of sitting and talking and just shooting the like he's comfortable in that setting. And everyone was kind of just standing around. He's like, oh, everyone's standing. Like, seriously, would you be more comfortable if we were sitting? He's like, I don't care what you do. And even that, I was like, okay, good, cool. I like the little bit of snark to him this year. I think that's good.
Yeah. I think the biggest storyline going into ACC Kickoff was Tommy Castellanos and just all of the controversy around him surrounding his comments about Bama a couple weeks ago. What did you take away from how he responded to questions regarding that? I know Chris probably has some stark opinions about this, but what did he say? And I guess just what were your takeaways?
I thought he handled it well. Honestly, he didn't walk it back. He explained it, similar explanation that he already provided once. Yeah, he got asked about it repeatedly. I feel like it averaged about every 2 minutes in a 15-minute interview, so he probably got it 7 or 8 times.
I asked him the first time. I got the first
follow-up.
Yeah, you asked him in the pre-breakout. I'm talking about the one with the whole media pool, which was a bonanza. You were hanging out with Coach during that one while I was with Tommy.
That was crazy. People were
getting the other players.
People were getting legit mad at each other because the reporters kept cutting each other off to ask questions and stuff. I just sat there and watched.
I thought Tommy handled himself fine. The moment I was most humored with in the breakout was when they asked Tommy about the team going 2-10 last year and his thoughts on it. I want to be like, well, he played a role in one of the 10. So,
he found Trayshawn Ward wide open.
My thought is, hey, at least we won that one at BC.
A lot of times.
I thought Tommy did fine on the day. He does a fairly good job of just speaking his mind. Again, and you guys know my opinion on this. Like, he can say whatever the hell he wants. They just got to go play good football once August 30 rolls around. Like, they got to be a good football team. He's got to be the captain of that team. He's got to be the one that guides the offensive ship. And if he does that, nobody's going to care what he says. If he doesn't do that, it's going to be one of those storylines where everybody hates every word that ever comes out of his mouth. And he's one that can control that narrative by his play more so than by his words.
I think the most interesting thing I got out of what he said was someone asked him about like how his teammates responded to his comments. And you can kind of tell in his answer, he didn't say, I stand by what I said. Well, he originally said that. And then
we stand on that.
Yeah, adjusted it to we stand by what I said. So it sounds like from what he said, like the next day following those comments going public, but from Pesky Pete Nikos, the entire team or multiple members of the team came up to Tommy and told him that they were behind him and supported his comments about Alabama. So I thought that was encouraging. But I'm I think similarly to Chris here. Alabama's going to play you hard regardless. Like, this is not going to be that big of a needle mover in that game, in my opinion. But I do think that there is something to be said about, like, if things don't go well in that game and you had all this talk out there, like, what is the fallout from that going to look like if that does take place? I think that is something to kind of take into account.
Zach wants to play the Alabama doomsday scenario. We ready for this? FSU loses by an ample amount, gets handled, not a competitive atmosphere. Tommy's comments come back to live. The fan experience in the stadium, newly renovated Doak Campbell Stadium, is poor. What are the message boards like on Sunday morning?
Chris, can we not manifest?
Am I just literally locking every thread? Is that where we're at?
Probably. You're always a proponent of let it burn. For 24
short
hours.
Term, yes. Let them get it out of their system, have their opportunity, speak on it. But there's going to be ceiling today. I just, I sit there and think about my goal for this season personally is just worry about what the hell's happening on the field. Like, if something off the field that impacts the ability for someone to play on the field happens, that matters. But I'm talking more so like the minutia, the quacking of the duck, for lack of a better term. Like, I don't care about it.
Let me handle the minutia, buddy. I'll dive into that. I'll handle that.
Jimbo Fisher on ACC Network now. That's going to be a gold mine, and I'm calling that. That's my beat. I'm just going to write about Jimbo and his thoughts.
All right, he's got dibs on.
Can't wait to transcribe Jimbo.
Yeah, I was going to say you transcribe that.
2015. Here we come, baby. Woo!
I'm kind of nervous about the new stadium kind of getting broken with a bunch of people and stuff. Oh, just the construction.
I just can't wait for Jimbo to say, I would have went for a field goal.
If I didn't say it, then it would happen. So now I said I've saved 68,000 lives or whatever the attendance is that people were mad at. I'm so happy for football to start because the amount of minutia that we are getting get pissed off at, like, just football. Yes, it's like a month away. Let's go. Just needs to happen.
So they start fall camp. That was another thing that got announced at kickoff. They start fall camp next Wednesday, the 30th. So it's right around the corner. Are we doing another podcast before then?
I am traveling. And then you're coming up Tuesday. So maybe we could do it in person after the meeting.
We could do it Tuesday after the preseason kickoff.
Let's talk a little bit. Brendan, you dropped some scoop this week, including some of my scoop.
I didn't actually attribute this.
Yeah, I noticed that. That was interesting. No, that was an interesting move by you.
I said our staff. I said our staff. Yeah. Like I said, staff. No. You're part of the staff.
Gotcha.
What? Right, well, you know what? No. We're gonna address.
No, what did you learn?
What? Give you a good story idea, and then you have success with it. You can attribute me. How about that? How about
It
that?
was my story idea. I told you to start digging on stuff.
No, I didn't mean this.
Oh. What kind of intel did you pick up on with the team? They just finished summer workouts. What kind of things did you learn about where things stand?
They're going 12-0. I think we can all agree with that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
No.
yeah.
No one's pushing back.
Okay. I did appreciate that there was couch comments and the staffers and the people around the program, sources that I talked to, right? Like that was it. That was a thing that people within the program that have their fingers, on the pulse of the team, really, we have to see what it looks like. And so, I thought that was good. Like the people leading the charge are being realistic. It's like, you have to put things together and stuff. Okay, those are the caveats. I thought that was good. That they weren't saying, "Oh, we're going to be able to run the damn football this year," and they did not. So that's good. In terms of actual team scoop of some details, I thought the two big ones in terms of availability, a lot of really positive things about Jason Jenkins and where he's at, and we reported that about a week or so ago. But that just was further reaffirmed to talking to more sources and getting more context on it. He's someone that okay, so they've spoken about how hard he's worked to get back there. Like that's cool, that's good, that's what you want to hear. But that's been consistent. The amount of people that are willing to speak about his work effort and work ethic, and his effort, and just his maturity as well. And he was talked about like as someone who they think could be kind of like a edge setter, and I don't mean that in the terms of like setting the edge against the run, like he's someone's going to set the tone of what they want, and being discussed as a guy who could play on Sundays. So that's a development, and even Mike Norvell publicly talked about that. Then a few days later at ACC Kickoff, and someone who will be available somewhat time or middle of camp. He said.
Yeah, he said that that's the ideal timeline is they get him back doing stuff in the middle of fall camp.
He's still in the rehab process, so there's potential for setbacks. There's potential for it to get even better too, right? Like it's still there's variance there. Yeah. Squirrel White, wide receiver, so another Tennessee transfer, is someone else who was brought up almost by everyone I talked to. And
yeah, Tommy brought him up too.
Yeah, I asked Tommy specifically about Squirrel, at least my portion of it. But when in talking to sources, like he was brought up by almost everyone, and it was all unprovoked. And he just sounds like he's really fast and healthy. And so those are two big ones because both those guys, one came in with an injury, one suffered an injury. In terms of the way the roster has been constructed, the amount of money you've put into them, you need both those guys to be good. The fact that they're available, that they look good, they're handling their part of the bargain so far up to this point. That's good. Usman Kroma, everyone talks about him. Usman Kroma, sorry, I got the pronunciation guide. Usman Kroma.
I feel like we change the pronunciation of his name like every 6 months.
Should we go into the pronunciation guide at any point? I think just me reading it would be great. Or a game where we guess what it should be.
Yeah, maybe not on the main pod.
Okay, that'll be on the bench special. LaJesse Harold's not LaJesse Harold. I'll just leave it at that. Trying to think of what else that was particularly interesting. Feel free to chime in, guys, if you think there's anything else I should be bringing.
I'll say like I heard that someone described Squirrel White as like kind of the home run threat that Norvell hasn't had to this point at FSU. Like that, I think the other one that comes to mind is someone like Pokey Wilson, but Squirrel White's definitely faster than Pokey Wilson. So that was something that stood out to me.
Some PTSD from last year was Malik Benson supposed to be, but
we don't have a phrase for Chris to repeat 20 times on the pod.
Hey, they bet on him and it busted.
They did, yeah. Betting on Benson was a real thing. Just sometimes
Squirrel's gonna. No, I'm not doing that
one. Going nuts for Squirrel. What can we do? Yeah, we'll workshopping it.
Yeah.
Team Great. Is fun. Yeah, but you can check. I mean, listen, it's all over at Knowles 24/7. Legit, no one else does it the way we do with that kind of stuff. So thank you for pushing me, Zach, and for contributing to the scoop. It was really helpful. I'm sorry I did not use your name in this one. I usually do. I didn't think about it, and I was selfish. I apologize.
Some things that Kickoff reinforced is a strong belief in these players, and it's a mix of freshmen and newcomers. Squirrel White was certainly one. Jason Jenkins talking about coming back from injury, but what he can be when he returns from said injury. Luke Pettibon which has been a consistent theme with everybody I've talked to, whether it's player or coaches.
Yeah, they love him.
Yeah, Richie Leonard spoke. I love Richie. Like, Richie's a kid that thinks about what he's saying, and I appreciate that. He really likes Luke. Like, he just thinks Luke has an excellent, like, workman type of attitude to how he does it. I think he called him a professional, a football professional, I think is how he termed it. And Mike said something relatively similar to that when discussing him. Javon Boggs continues to come up, someone they're extremely high on, feel like can really contribute year one. It's going to be really interesting to see if Boggs is able to ascend to that third receiver role and claim it. It's pretty wide open, obviously. Randy Pittman, because of ultra familiarity with the offense, is a guy that everybody feels like is going to be productive. That makes
He's been good this offseason.
Yeah, and I've heard he's been in a good bridge with guys on like explaining things about the offense. Like, I think there's a degree of Randy sees what the 11 is supposed to do beyond just simply what Randy Pittman, the tight end or H-back role, is supposed to do. And that's always good when you have a guy that sees it that way. It usually leans into a guy who's going to be a good football player, not just an individual talent. On defense, Elijah Herring's name continues to come up. I think there's just a confidence, and he's going to be like a really solid force at linebacker. Those freshman D linemen, Juju was brought up. Daryl Jackson actually spoke a good bit about Juju and how good he can be.
Juju is Kevin Wynn.
Yeah,
sorry about that. The Desir twins continue to come up, always praised. It's funny, they're like always the first. And when you ask somebody what freshman is doing well on offense, I feel like Chroma or Boggs is pretty consistently the first name, but on defense, I feel like it's always the twins. And I think it's just they're viewed as very mature and have a very good approach to how they go about doing it. And they do a good job of pushing one another, individually speaking. Those were some of them. He's not youngin', but Jeremiah Wilson also was spoken pretty highly about. Personality apparently has hit it off really well with the team, especially for being a guy who was inserted ultra late in comparison to most.
That's pretty easy to.
Yeah. You talk to Jerry. They all call him Jerry. You talk to Jerry like the first time, you're like, oh man, this kid, like he's happy-go-lucky, excitable, and likes playing football. Like, those are good traits. Those usually go pretty well and competitive. But he's also done a really good job in doing team stuff in the sense of like showing like he belongs here. And yeah, there's a reason I went to get him.
And I do real quick, Chris, like Jerry. Oh God, Jeremiah, you're doing it.
They call him Jerry. His mama called him Jerry. I'm gonna call him Jerry.
It's a reference. You mentioned the competitiveness with him, and like I think that is one thing. And this is something they're talking about, the edge and being desperate. Like, that's a talking point, right? And again, we get to see it all on display in a month and change from now. But I do feel like in watching some of the guys they brought in, how they play, and speaking to some of them, we heard one of the transfers in started a fight in spring practice because they didn't like that someone else was half-assing it. And I was like, that's the kind of stuff. It's someone bigger than them too, and they did not care, and they went after them. But like, that's the kind of stuff that you need. They lacked that type of like edge, like real people who would put their foot down when things weren't going well. Now you have to do it through the course of the season, but like Jeremiah Wilson, I think is someone who fits in that realm. Luke Pettibon, someone who fits in that realm.
There's also guys trying to be better at it. Daryl Jackson spoke a good bit at kickoff about trying to be more vocal, that it's certainly not a comfortable thing. I joked with him that he's always been big and he's always been scary, but he's never been real loud. And he's definitely trying to be more loud these days. He's trying to be more vocal. He's trying to be more consistent individually speaking, but he's also, see something, say something with his teammates, trying to give something to the defensive linemen in the sense of the young guys about lessons learned along his journey, Miami, Maryland here. And then, just doing stuff like that. And it's not the most comfortable thing for Daryl. He'll readily admit that. It's not his normal personality. But I think there's a degree of him of understanding, one, that there was a void in his room, and two, it's something he probably should have done a year ago that he understood now that he probably should have done a year ago. So he's trying to be better about it.
Do you think they have enough leadership on this team?
I think leadership in this day and age of football teams getting flipped over like they do is tough, because I think leadership is usually established by carryover, by having been there for good and bad and gone through it and, been a point where a coach probably told you you're not part of my football team, and then you earn your way back, and all those things that used to come with the 3 to 5 year journey that we used to cover with football players. I think that's all gone. So it's tougher. I think now it's about one, making yourself comfortable with your teammates, not necessarily being best of friends, but understanding that when you're in that locker room, the group of you is going to go on the football field to compete for the same thing. You're going to have each other's backs doing it. I think that's ultra important. I think there is an effort among this group to be pretty good about that. I think Tommy is a leader in the sense of like, he'll take the bullets by being vocal about things, which not everybody's going to love, but I think he's comfortable with that. And I don't think that's the worst thing, that he sort of puts the target on himself and keeps it off everybody else. I don't know. Like, I think Luke Pettibon's a leader, but I don't know if he's a vocal leader. But I think he's certainly a guy that shows you how it's supposed to be done on a daily basis. I think he's a guy that has earned the respect of the guys he plays with because he has so many reps at a high level, and he goes out there and he busts his backside. One of the best things I heard about Luke is that, you know, he wins 90%, but he forgets about the 10% he loses real quick. Like, he's really good about that. And I think at O-line, that's one of the biggest lessons guys have to learn is, you know, you're not going to win every rep. You're going against some monsters on the other side, and sometimes they're going to get the better of you, and that stinks, but that's what it is. How do you respond to that? How do you handle that? How do you deal with the next rep? I think Luke's a guy that embodies that. I'm interested. Yeah, I think Deuce Robinson's a really good guy. I think Deuce is a guy that came in the building and wanted to work his backside off and worked really hard to create a relationship with his quarterback, and that's, you know, sprung out to a lot of other guys. I think Deuce is a guy that's capable of being a pretty good leader. He's a smart kid. He's a good personality kid too. But I don't know. I'm not quick to crown anybody as sort of the guy that, like, when they got to have the guy stand in front of the team and speak, that he's that person. I don't know who that person is. I don't know. What do you think, Brendan?
Yeah, so I'm pulling up from our 40 most important player list. I think part of this is like how effective are the best players at leading.
Yeah.
In last year, and some of this is hindsight, some of this was concerned in real time, and I think ultimately, like to your point earlier, Chris, like a lot of this is contingent on if you win games, right? Like, and how do guys lead when things don't go well? And that's one thing, like with Daryl, that like I need to see. It's like, yeah, he broke the rock. I know he's pushing, he's trying to, but when shit gets real, who steps up? And I think that's kind of like that's the crux of all of this, is figuring that out. Last year there was no one, and Mike Norvell was talking about that, and we'll see with Tommy Castellanos, like how he is as a leader when things get difficult. Bill O'Brien and people at like Boston College implied it wasn't great last year. We'll see. Like that is a variable. So how's your quarterback? Yeah, last year for Florida State, you had DJ Ongale, who by all accounts, really nice guy. Well liked, worked really hard. I mean, I give him a lot of credit for being at Florida State through the bitter end, even while hurt. Was helping teammates out and stuff, but not a forward-facing leader. That's where I think you need the guys like a Luke Pettibon, like a Jeremiah Wilson, Deuce Robinson. I think through work ethic. I think James Williams has proven to be someone who's scrappy and will put his face in the fan. Like though Randy Pittman, I think, is someone like that as well. And those are generally guys who are considered better players. So I have a level. I don't want to be accused of wish casting here now, guys, but I do have a level of optimism of like. Generally, the guys you brought in, this was by design through the transfer portal, had a level of maturity to them. And I think that does help you within the margins. But it all to me comes down to Tommy Castellanos. Like I think that, or not all of it, but most of it, like how he guides you through the bad times. If he stays like dialed in during the good times, like, you know, that is your breaking point one way or the other this season. And that I don't know. I can't say.
He's got to be all in. And
I think he is all in. I just, when things go poorly, like I want to see what that looks like. So there are going to be games where you're not going to be like, I don't think you're going to be the most talented team 3 to 5 times this season.
It's his last trip around the sun playing college football, more than likely. I mean, he spoke at ACC Kickoff as though it is his last year. We'll see if that holds true. I know there's potential of it not definitely being the case, but for now, we're entering the season with that being the mindset he is sharing. To me, like with him, again, it goes back to, we're going to get very early litmus test here with the Alabama game. he's obviously put his neck out there with comments he's made, and it is what it is. If he goes and plays poorly, how does he respond to that, either immediately after the game or the next time he speaks after the game? And how does he respond to that, more importantly, to his teammates in the locker room? Because there will be guys that will – human nature is human nature, and it exists in all of us. When you get 120 football players together, you're still going to deal with human nature. Even though it is a group and it's a team and it's a family to a degree, you're still going to have guys where if they play poorly and Tommy plays poorly, you're going to be like, well, you ran your mouth. Why'd you do that? That's a moment where like you get a little bit of a like internal test, and it's going to be interesting to see how they navigate things like that. And if it goes well, he's going to get a little bit of the shoulder carry, good job stuff too. That's just, again, human nature of it all. It's going to be interesting to watch it in real time. I just think leadership, it's funny. I feel like every time a team was on the podium and there weren't enough questions being asked, the man who moderates, he does a phenomenal job, tends to ask a leadership question. And it just humors me listening to different responses. I think leadership is ultra difficult in this day and age of college football for most teams, because there are very few guys who sort of understand all of the minutiae that goes with the uniform they're putting on. But now it's kind of a job. It used to be sort of like, this is a very important portion of my life, where I'm going from child to adult, and for many chasing a dream of continuing to play the game of football.
Mike was asked about the way different players lead, and if he liked, I asked it of him if he was okay with the way Tommy conducted himself publicly, this offseason with the pesky Pete story. It wasn't a really direct answer with that, I thought, but it did lend some insight into that he does generally like the way the group has conducted themselves through practice, through workouts, as teammates away from the field. I get the sense that that's genuine, that he does like that. I don't remember one way or the other about him speaking highly of leadership last year. I know the comments of, we have to see what it looks like in the moment of truth, and it was a really athletic team. We have to see what it looks like. And he did couch that, and he did provide those caveats, and we saw what it looked like, and it was a team devoid of leadership. So that is a thing that we can't quantify. We spend a lot of time talking about it, a lot of time writing about it, a lot of time asking questions about it. It's intangible. It is super important. There's just no way to measure it. It's like the definition of pornography. It's like, it when you see it, and we'll see soon enough. Go ahead, Zach.
I was just gonna say, I think Chris brought up a good point with Tommy and the way I'm like kind of operating, like my mantra entering the season for Florida State is, I think you're going to ride the highs and the lows of Tommy Castellanos this season. Like I think that, like Chris said, if things go well in that Bama game, like I think you're going to be riding super high, right? Because you had those comments of ammunition going in. You stood on business and handled your business against a opponent that was favored to beat you by almost 2 touchdowns. And I think there's the potential for that. And then on the flip side of things, like we saw kind of an example of this with Tommy at Boston College last year. Things did not go well. He says that it was, mostly off-field stuff, and the on-field stuff was fine. But like things on the field were not going well for Boston College. They made a quarterback change. So I do think that that's kind of like how I'm operating entering the season. That should be the case for most of the time with your quarterback, right? Like if your quarterback's playing well, your team should be, performing pretty well. So it's not a groundbreaking thought or mantra, but I think with Tommy's personality, it's especially true, because I do think he has those kind of highs and lows of emotions. And I think that's going to affect, not only his play, but just kind of the overall makeup of the team, with him playing such an important position.
And it'll be interesting to see, because I do get the sense that he's emotional, and that can be a really good thing. That can be a really positive tool if harnessed correctly. As we're bringing in Gus Malzahn, bringing in someone who is a veteran of coaching, and Mike Norvell can be emotional. We saw it on the sideline last year. He's admitted that he's emotional. Again, that could be a really good thing. It could also be a really bad thing. You guys would say that about me on this podcasting. Is like there are times where the emotion is good and times where the emotion is not good, and it could be your enemy. So, to say is, yeah, I think that you have a veteran center around him. You've added some wide receivers with college experience. You have a offensive coordinator who knows Tommy well, who's worked with him before, who's been in college football for a long time. I think there's reason for optimism of how it will all work well around him.
All right. Brendan, a story that kind of came up earlier in the summer was about like Florida State's contracts that they were sending out to players, the Revshare contracts. I know that was FSU fans were not enthused by the reporting on that. But what has happened since then? What is kind of the ongoing process of Florida State trying to sign their players to these Revshare contracts?
So the Revshare contracts came out around July 1st. Some got it a little early, some got it a day or two after, but in that range. And there was a CBS article by Chris Hummer that was poorly received by the FSU fan base, and they felt like it was, they felt attacked by it. And I talked to Hummer after he published it about just trying to get an idea of some of the stuff he went through, and it was thoroughly like vetted, but people I think felt like FSU was being isolated, and I understand that where that would come from. I did talk to agents, multiple, probably representing like at least directly or indirectly, like 20 players of the team accounted for somehow or another, and most of that direct. And to a T, any agent that has had a player with multiple Power 4 conference affiliations, FSU had by far the most expansive contract. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. But there's a lot of details, and there's a lot of language to protect Florida State. Which again, Florida State's documenting and drawing up and drafting the contract. You're going to try to protect yourself. And so, I'm just trying to set the stage for people who may not have been privy to this. And so there was a lot of pushback from representation, and agents are obviously looking out for their clients' best interest, their own best interest. Like that's both sides are doing that. So that was, kind of what the initial fallout was, I think, publicly. Now we are in late July, and my understanding through pretty extensive reporting is that as of late last week, early this week, and we're now recording this on a Friday, about 50 or so players had still yet to sign their Revshare agreements with Florida State out of the roster of 105, or a little bit more than that. So about a little bit less than half the team still has not. Now you can play, without signing a Revshare contract. A lot of these Revshare contracts are going to be slightly different terms and stuff for every player, but generally, pretty good sense of what it is for each player. But some of them are multiple years, and that would be the one deterrent is if someone doesn't sign, they're a free agent, which they could be anyways, but there's now financial, like you can get some compensation back, and there's things to protect yourselves. And so that was the main thing, is that there's a lot that haven't signed. Now there's different opinions, different agents have different thoughts on it. It does sound like it has been, the amount of red lines have been overwhelming for Florida State, and they just weren't expecting, I think, to that extent, or weren't prepared for it. And so it has taken a while for there to be communication through this process. But again, they have probably until middle of August or so is kind of the date that's being thrown around to kind of get it finalized. Camp starts here in a week. I'm sure they want to get it done with to be devoid of distractions. I did talk to one team source who said, there are some players who are unhappy. They're not speaking for everyone, but there are multiple players. And there's also multiple players who, and the way this works is the players get a document, like a DocuSign type of deal. It can go to you can send it to your parent, to an agent to look over, whatever, but you ultimately sign it. And at least at least two that I know of, signed without sending it to representation, just kind of signed it without knowing it. And we'll see if Florida State allows them to go back, because there is a lot of stuff there that if you get hurt, your whole contract can get null and void. And so there's things that do not protect players very well in this contract. And so that's that's a long rambling way of me trying to get people caught up on it. We can dive into it if you have more details that you want to get into, if you guys have thoughts on it, whatever. But that's kind of the general overview of what we've reported.
Zach's muted, so I'm going to talk for him.
Oh, sorry. I don't think we have to like go super deep into it, but I will say it's an interesting scenario because players have almost no leverage, right? I think I've seen some reporting around the country that players are considering like opting out, like if things not at Florida State, but just at other schools and stuff like that. I mean, we see that in professional sports all the time. But there's not an active transfer portal really for players to be able to, go on the move if they can't come to terms, right? Like, so I think that kind of adds a dynamic to where, these schools can probably get away with, more expansive contract language, stuff that does not protect the athletes as well as, if they were negotiating in a transfer portal window, for instance, right? So I think that's an interesting component, but I mean, I think you outlined it well. I have a feeling that all the, most of this stuff is going to get squared away here in the next, few weeks. And I don't envision it becoming a bigger issue, but I mean, it's a new component of college football and it's important to report on. And, I think adding the context that like, hey, like, you're speaking to agents who also represent players at other schools. So you get that kind of perspective of like, hey, is this normal? And most of them are saying this is a little bit of an extreme case, but I think they also understand
to
that
be clear, every one of them has said this is the most extreme version, just because people did go after a different writer's article and say, why are you picking on us? It was because this was the most extreme. Now you could say there's other examples you should have brought up in that, and that's, I think, totally fine criticism. But I think there's people weed whacking. That's why Zach's muting his mic.
Yeah.
But yeah, FSU's was the most extreme. Now, a real quick caveat is at least one agent said, I think what FSU is doing is kind of progressive and more NFL like. But there's like it's you don't have a union. Yeah.
That's a two-way street though. Like, okay, so I have 3 simple thoughts on it, and it's pretty much the exact same thoughts I had when Hummer's article came out, which I didn't love that article, and we've had internal discussions about that, but I have no issue with Hummer at all. First and foremost, a negotiation is a negotiation. That's true for both sides. Mm-hmm. Earn your pay. Like, that's what it's about. 2, FSU should try to seize control because for the last multiple years, there's been no ability for schools to seize control. So I really don't have an issue with FSU being pushy about it. That being said, FSU also has to understand the repercussions of doing such. Long-term, short-term, with the agents they deal with the players they deal with, they have to understand that, and they have to navigate that accordingly.
Can I ask you a question on that, Chris?
Yes.
Thank you. Do you think that they understood the repercussions of it? I think that might be a disconnect.
FSU?
Yes. Sorry.
I mean, I think FSU was trying to seize power with how they went about conducting the contract.
Yeah, sure.
Do I think I understand? I think repercussions are a little to be determined. I think some of that is about smoothing over relationships and being effective in that world of negotiations. I don't know how FSU is on that. That's one of those areas where people that have done this for a number of years at a high level, NFL front office types, those types, I think that's where that experience would have been extremely valuable to be inserted into the FSU machine. And we spoke about that in the offseason about changing the front office approach. And I think that's an area where it would have benefited them. Yes. I think you're leaning on examples of NFL type contracts and things that apply to that level of the game, but you're also having people do it that have never done it at that level. And I think there's a degree of, yes, this is written on paper, but also the conversations that are had with it. And I think that might be where FSU could be, probably better at it, or at least more well-versed. The third thing that comes to mind to me is, one, I don't expect holdouts, but also I think ultimately in the end, this just yells that a CBA is desperately needed and an organization of players as employees is desperately needed. And that's been true since all of this stuff started with the court action that's ultimately brought us to the point of pay for play, so on and so forth.
Executive orders, like this is moving.
Create a CBA, create them as employees, give it a baseline, give them some common language for contracts, some standardized language that is agreed upon by both sides, which is a baseline point. It simplifies the situation, and just, quit allowing for constant wiggle room with every single rule and accord that's created pertaining to the subject, because nothing ever allows progress. Every time we feel like there's a step towards progress, we get legal battles, we get situations where, well, this is different than that, and we're going to do this, we're going to circumvent the cap, hard cap, soft cap, all of those type of terms. It is exhausting. It's nauseating. It's horrible for the freaking game. It's pissing off fans, and they're checking out because of it. And it's not a good thing. Like, at some point, just get to the finish line, which is they are employees, and here we have a collective bargaining agreement.
I have two thoughts real quick. What?
Zach's being terrorized by yard service.
Zach, if you have thoughts, raise your hand so that way I can see, because I know you can't.
Thanks, Mr. Sonnone.
Doc Sonnone to you. First off, just a caveat. Florida State has, even for players who have not signed, because payments for the first part of the Revshare, I think, I don't know if it's month to month or if it's like twice, but the first payments went out to everyone. It was a good faith by Florida State to send that out. So they did do that on July 15th. My biggest thought on all of this is I am in agreement with Chris that this is a negotiation. Program needs to look out for the program, right? Now, it does get muddied some when you have a coach going into a player's living room and telling the parents, hey, I'm going to take care of your son like he's one of my own. And then they're presented with that contract. Like, I don't think that's like, would you have your kids sign that contract? No. But that's me being idealistic. And I admit I do toe the line of being idealistic. Ultimately, though, fine with all that. This is a business, and that all makes sense to me. The one thing that I'm really interested to see, and we have reported on it, we'll see what happens. This is the one thing where it's like, I would not feel great about what FSU did during this, is if for some of the players who just signed it, and you can say, hey, they're adults now. Okay, like, you got lawyers and like probably 10 different sets of like professional eyes going over this contract, and it gets dropped into a kid's inbox, a 20-year-old's inbox, who has no idea what they're looking at, and they just sign it. That could be a lesson learned, but is that ethical? And if that player wants to go ahead and get a chance to renegotiate some things, do you let them out and do that? And that's the one thing. If you don't, I would be disappointed, I guess, would be my one caveat in all this. I think everything else has been totally fair.
Cool. Quickly on some recruiting stuff, Florida, kind of like the last target of Florida State's like summer recruiting. What, Brendan?
On that topic, Zach, August 1st, numbers go out.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk about that real quick? So I think there's been some confusion as like, the offers that recruits have gotten aren't, people think those are the documents are the same that the college players have gotten. Well said on mine.
Really explaining it well. August 1st, schools can begin to send out, I don't even know how to describe them. They're not contracts, but it's basically
letters of understanding.
Yeah, but you're not signing anything. So they're just sending recruits what they're telling them they're going to get paid. And
I think technically that would be a memorandum.
Okay. That, I guess.
Isn't your mom a lawyer, Zach? And your dad?
Yeah, bad job by me. But yeah, I mean.
Bad job by them. No offense, Jeff.
I think it's so, like, what is the point of this is kind of my thought. Like, and I think schools think similarly, because basically all you're doing is just giving away leverage in these recruitments. Like, if you're telling a recruit how much you're going to offer them, and they have that in written, paper, which is not something that has really been a thing during recruiting processes before, like, what's stopping them from going and just sharing that to another school and having that concrete, proof, like, hey, this is what a school is offering me. Because before, they take an offer and bring it to another school, but it would all be, well, hey, this is what they told me. I don't have any
word of mouth, and then you played the telephone game of, is that number true?
Yeah,
There's
which
something.
coaches do all the time.
Now we're playing Price is Right, where it's like, I'll give you $1 more.
So I have no idea of like if you send someone, hey, this is what we'll pay you. It's probably not.
It's not binding.
Yeah. But I think if you're looking at, so let's say you're representing a player, you're an agent representing a player, and a school tells you, hey, we're going to pay you this much. Okay, we'll put it down on paper. Like that is still more than just the word. But then more than that, because that even the school can go back and change that later. Now it's bad faith, but you can do that. Like it's not binding, to your point. But what I think where you get a little bit more, like we can be a little bit more empowered as the labor in this example, is you can request, well, what are the other terms? How many years is it going to be? Is there going to be an injury provision? What happens if I get hurt? How's my all that stuff? And if that's not in the initial contract for you, but it's in it for other schools, then that maybe, that's something that it clarifies the negotiation window, which I think is ultimately good for there be transparency. So that would be the one thing I'd say like might come of this. Now, how some agents are really experienced, some are really inexperienced. Some agents are really smart, some are not thought of quite as highly even by people within the FSU program and in every college program. It just depends. So Houses Advocate could be a really useful tool in time for negotiations. It could just be a mess, and it could absolutely mean nothing too. So college football in 2025, I just summed it up.
Yeah, I think what you bring up is true, like with the terms of the whatever deal is being offered, and that being more clear, and comparing those head to head against other schools that have offered as well. Like I think there is value in that, but there's nothing stopping these schools from completely changing the terms when they these kids actually eventually get on campus. Like I think that is fully going to happen and is allowed to happen under the current rules. There's nothing about them sending, and I think schools are going to be hesitant to share the extent of the terms with players or with recruits because it's a competitive disadvantage. So couple things at play there. Just wanted to clarify that because that is a question I had. I thought that recruits were going to be signing things, and I doubted that I had doubt that they were going to be binding, but I do think that having clarity that it's really means not much is kind of important, considering that that's on the horizon. And then what I was getting at before, kind of the last recruitment for Florida State over the summer, they're involved with offensive tackle Duron Parks, who was at Cardinal Mooney in Sarasota, but is now back in West Virginia where he grew up. He transferred back to a high school in that state for his senior year. He's deciding between FSU, Auburn, and Ohio State on Saturday at 4:30 p.m., which is tomorrow. It sounds like to me that FSU.
It is Saturday tomorrow. That's wild.
FSU and Auburn are kind of battling it out at the top right now. I think Ohio State was involved, but maybe not, pushing to the full extent to try and land him. I get the sense that FSU sits in a good spot with Duron Parks. I think he's someone that they've identified as a must get at this point in the class. They missed on their other offensive tackle target, Wilson Zier, who committed to Auburn a few weeks ago. Duron Parks became the most important remaining target after that decision was made. And, he's a guy that the staff thinks highly of internally. And yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, he's a must get recruit. So yeah, it sounds like he's going to have a ceremony at I think at a venue in West Virginia, and kind of announce his decision from there.
Are you going to it to cover it for us? I went to go cover KJ Bolden during camp COVID 2 years ago.
I went to West Virginia last year.
Yeah, so you're familiar with the terrain.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it could happen. We'll see.
You and Jimbo. Oh, country roads take me home. It could be a whole.
He's in Tallahassee at Planet Fitness and stuff. Did you see that updated photo of him? He's looking good.
He looks good, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, looks all right.
Okay. Yeah. So Duron Parks, that'll be a decision to watch this weekend. Besides that, recruiting front, a lot of expansion of the Jack linebacker board. Don't say edge. Jack linebacker board.
Who's that? Who's the poster that we're
FSU 91, I think.
You're welcome.
Yeah. But I mean, it is
Even though
right.
they're going to be interchangeable to some extent, based on
Yeah.
how the coaching staff has talked about it. So.
Yeah, and edge is just the way that it's described in the recruiting process. That's how they're ranked. But anyway, yeah. So they offered like 5 or 4 new Jack linebacker targets and turned up the heat with another. And Jarius Rogers, the Syracuse commit. We have a lot of coverage of that on Noles 24/7. I won't get super in the weeds of it, but just know that they are clearly trying to make an addition or two at that position because they did not land any of their targets at that spot over the summer. I think that's pretty much it, boys. Anything else we want to get into?
Well, I had one thought when you were talking about the memorandum of terms regarding it. You know what would resolve that?
What?
Signing day.
Oh.
Just turn August 1st into a signing day.
I mean, all the kids are committed.
Yeah, 90+% of blue chip players are committed at the end of July. Turn it into a signing day.
Plus, we've already seen that it's not that hard to get out of your letter of intent.
Right.
So
you turn it into a signing day, you present actual contract terms, and you have a odd idea, but NCAA and or the autonomy P4 takes the lead and says, if these things happen, a player is automatically allowed to be granted a release, coaching departure, whatever body you want to use. But it would take actual leadership in a world where there's very little of it these days. You have these auto release things, head coach departing, things like that, and get as much in the weeds as you want to with it, but just get it done. Early signing day always should have been in the summer months because football recruiting has always trended to earlier and earlier and earlier.
I know the main, pushback with that is I think college coaches very much value senior year when it comes to evaluations. I think it's the most important year for a lot of positions on how they're going to project to the next level.
Yeah, and they don't want to be stuck with guys they already took who are going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, so there's that component. But if there's some way that you can, reasonably get out of a contract or a signing on both ends.
Well, you don't have to present a player with a contract to sign then either.
True. Yeah, it could be one of those things where you defer it until a later date.
Yeah.
I think we really came up with a good model here.
Let's pitch it to someone, Chris. Stan Wilcox still at the NCAA or no?
No, he's retiring. A lot of people said nice things about him.
Word is he got arrested at Chuck E. Cheese yesterday.
That's the police officer's face during that. I know that everyone's going to be drawn in by the Mickey Mouse. 3, 2, 1. Chuck E. Cheese, different rodent. Come on. Getting also, like, how come you couldn't sue? Disney should have sued. Like, hey, okay, you all of a sudden have a giant rodent. Anyways, I digress. The police officer looked really pissed off to be doing that and just like, this is ridiculous. I thought that was pretty good.
That's like something that would only happen in Tallahassee. I think.
Definitely a Florida thing for sure.
Yeah.
And the fact that there's still Chuck E. Cheeses around in 2025 is also kind of wild.
I feel like it's kind of cursed. Like
I tried to go to Chuck E. Cheese with my girlfriend in college. We were just walking around and there was Chuck E. Cheese. You want to go in there? Yeah. And they were like, oh, you can't go in unless you have kids. Which I was like, okay, that actually makes sense. It was an arcade with pizza.
Don't they reuse pizza slices there? Like if someone
doesn't eat
them, I think I've seen that. Like if someone doesn't eat them, they like put them back in a pie and it's like uneven because it's not like cut from the same pie.
They're going to sue you. I didn't think about it just being an adult with that. I didn't think about it. And,
you're a creep.
And now it's going to get caught somewhere on Twitter. Damn it. I did have 2 things that I wanted to bring up real quick. What?
Why don't you just host then?
You asked if we had anything else.
Yeah, but I was kind of like one person answers, then we get out of here.
All right. Well, we had subscribers, paying customers who had wanted to know something. So I was going to ask.
You like posted something on the board?
Like if you guys have any things you want to
It's a great time to bring it up. Yeah, go ahead.
Emma's growling right now. She's not happy with the way you guys are treating me.
Zach's growling too.
No, that's
his hair looks a little bit better now as we've gone through this hour, but still not great. What do we think about UNC? All of a sudden, their media starting to write a lot of stories about SEC and conference expansion and whatnot.
I'm not trying to. I can't pat myself on the back because my arm doesn't bend that way. But didn't I say that like 2 years ago? Didn't I often say, yeah, in all of this, UNC and potentially another school probably ends up in the SEC? Bubba squawking like Bubba squawked, but it was because Bubba is an ACC, brethren kind of guy. That school has been doing everything humanly possible to increase their value to make them more appealing to a departure from the league. And they've always been appealing to the SEC because it's like ripping the backbone out of the original ACC.
Can you touch your back, Chris?
I can.
Okay. But
I just was like, Inside Carolina's story, I think Greg Barnes wrote it, is phenomenal. It's excellent. It's really well done. And I'm not in any way, shape, or form saying like, oh, they just figured this out, because I don't think that's true. I think they've known what's been going on. They're extremely in tap with that program. They do the best job of covering that program of anybody under the sun.
They have people probably
willing to actually talk about it now
on record.
Right. Yeah. My point more so is like national folks who jumped on Bubba's comments towards FSU barking and other people of that sort in that market doing that. Like, you did yourselves a disservice, because now you're in the boat we were in the boat of a couple years ago. Like, no doubt UNC is trying to go. There are a lot of programs, Memphis with the whole trying to buy their way into a conference last week is another example, trying to make themselves as valuable as possible and move themselves up as much as possible, because when it all happens and it's two major conferences, they do not want to be relegated. And that's where we are currently. The climb from 2025 till 2029 to 31, wherever we land in that time frame of things truly changing, it's going to all be two super conferences. That's what it's all working towards. It's all there. TV contracts come up. That's when it's going to happen. And that's what those leagues are doing. And UNC is a valuable property, obviously, with a magnificent basketball program, historically speaking, and a football program they're now investing in with hiring of Bill Belichick and doing things like that. Not that they weren't invested with Mac Brown, but it's clear that like there's a constant effort to make a movement with that. I think I saw where they sold all their tickets for this coming season, for example.
They carry good, like a lot of their alumni live in Charlotte or Atlanta, and so like you carry that. That is one thing. I think it was our 24/7 reporting, but the reporting was that like Clemson and North Carolina atop, which like even I think as a Florida State fan, you can understand where North Carolina's brand would put you in the conversation to be one of the most appealing. Clemson being the number 2 there, I think is interesting. Like I know what they've done with football, but like I'm not sure if they carry as many big markets around them as say Florida State does. And then I always found the Virginia thing to be kind of weird. The people bringing that up, and I still do. So I mean, a lot of this is just kind of stuff we thought would happen. It was honestly disappointing that North Carolina didn't get involved publicly to be part of it. And so maybe at least they'll send Florida State and the attorneys and A.D. Alford and Board of Trustees and everyone who took,
It is worth mentioning as a footnote for those not paying super close attention to the UNC thing. There has been change in leadership, and it is coming at UNC. That's part of the reason this is revving up.
Revsharing up. Last thing, Chris, Jim Phillips. Thoughts on PhD Phillips?
I thought his comments on the stage were, in general, pretty good pertaining to the current climate of college athletics. I could have done without the basketball talk, given some of that was because he was responding to a question pertaining to basketball.
What was the basketball talk?
He had the thing about the tournament being the crown jewel of championships, which, well, I get it. Like, I understand. I love March Madness as much as anybody, but like football is what pays the bills.
All right, so conspiracy theory.
They focused on football paying the bills.
So on that, I think tinfoil hat. That's someone setting up for whenever the ACC falls apart as is to be like, hey, basketball is what we do.
Yeah, and he kind of talked about that. And the other thing was the ACC schedule for basketball, for men's basketball, going from 20 to 18. And he was matter of fact with that. The ACC has not been a good representative of themselves in a basketball sense in recent years in comparison to their historical sense. And that's for them to schedule some better out-of-conference games and hopefully elevate the league a little bit back more into that conversation, which I thought was a very good response and very direct and very true. But I like, it's ACC football kickoff. Like, there's a degree of like keep the focus on football.
What about him talking about
The settlement and the FSU and Clemson settlement?
He really believes
Yeah,
that.
and us all being kumbaya. I expected that going in. I didn't, like, he painted in a picture of us all being in agreement and being for the greater good for all of us, and now it's all being a nice family. Everybody's a really nice family till the divorce comes.
Sometimes during the divorce too, they can get a little hostile. Not that I'm trauma dumping on anyone. All right. Sorry, Zach. Derailed it. It's yours. Go on. Take us home.
I'm going to do it in a really weird cadence just to annoy you.
You got better as it went on. That was wild.
And Chris Nee. This is Zach Blostein.
So
this was on the bench.
It was unsettling.
We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for listening.
Hated it.
Bye.